This screencast provides you with a detailed look and examples of each of the major sections of a technical description and the moves that happen within each section. So just by way of reminder, remember this is the organizational model of technical descriptions. You have a title, which is specific and precise, an introduction, which has several moves in it. First, the definition of the subject, purpose statement, main point, importance of the subject, overall description, and then a list of the major parts. And then with each of the major parts, you want to provide a definition, a purpose of that part, any of the minor parts, and you would repeat this as many times as necessary, depending upon how many major and minor parts you have. Then finally, in the conclusion, you would again reiterate the importance of the subject, the future of the subject, and then one operating cycle of the subject. Okay, let's look at some examples for each one of the different moves in the sections. Okay, let's start with the specific and precise title. The title of your document should clearly identify the purpose of the document, and your title should clearly distinguish your document as a technical description. So you can see three different precise titles that I've given you here, depending upon, or four precise titles, depending upon whether you're describing a process or a mechanism. So, description of the Mars Curiosity rover, specifications for the Intel Xeon 5 coprocessor, the inner workings of a fuel cell, lung cancer, profile of a killer. Next, the introduction begins with an overall description. So the introduction sets the context or the framework for the document and includes a definition of the subject, purpose statement, main point, importance of the subject, overall description of the subject, and then a list of the major features or functions or stages of the process. Okay, so let's look at some specific examples. So here's the introduction, the definition of the subject. In the definition of the subject, what we're looking for is a sentence definition of the subject which includes the term or the class in which the subject belongs and the characteristics that distinguish the subject from the other members of the class. So basically this is your technical definition. We practiced doing that earlier. And the definition, of course, should occur early in the introduction. Here are some examples of the definition of the subject. The International Space Station is a multinational research facility that houses 6 state-of-the-art laboratories in orbit. Or here's another one. Hodgkin's disease is a type of cancer that starts in the lymph nodes and other organs that are the body's system for making blood and protecting against germs. Okay, the next move in the introduction is the purpose statement. You want to directly or indirectly state that you're describing something. Here are 2 examples. The description of the International Space Station will explain its major features, highlighting its research capabilities. Second example. In this article, we will try to demystify Hodgkin's disease so that you can better understand its diagnosis and treatment. After the purpose statement, we would want to create a main point. So give your readers an overall claim that your description will support or prove. First example, building the International Space Station is an incredible engineering feat that has challenged the best scientists and engineers from many nations. Or, in the topic about Hodgkin's disease, we might say something like, to fight Hodgkin's disease, you first need to understand it. After the main point, state the importance of the subject. For readers who are unfamiliar with your subject, you might want to include a sentence or even a paragraph that stresses its importance. Again, here's the International Space Station. The ISS provides scientists and other researchers an excellent platform from which to study space. Or, in the case of Hodgkin's disease is one of the most acute forms of cancer, and it needs to be aggressively treated. After the importance of the subject, we would give an overall description of the subject. Descriptions sometimes offer an overall look at the item being described. So, from a distance, the International Space System looks like a large collection of white tubes with 2 rectangular solar panels jutting out like ears from its side. Or, Hodgkin's disease spreads through the lymphatic vessels to other lymph nodes. It enlarges the lymphatic tissue, often putting pressure on vital organs and other parts of the body. The last part of the introduction lists is a list of major features, functions, or stages. The introduction should preview or forecast the major features, functions, or stages in a list near the end of the introduction. Here are two examples. The ISS includes 5 main features: modules, nodes, trusses, solar power arrays, and thermal radiators. Or, Hodgkin's disease, once it has been detected, doctors will usually, number 1, determine the stage of cancer, 2, offer treatment options, and 3, make a plan for remission. After completing the introduction, we move into the body of the technical description, and the description can be by major features, functions, or stages. You would address each major part separately, define it, and describe it. Within your description of each major part, identify and describe any minor parts associated with it. Here's an example. Modules are pressurized cylinders of habitable space on board the station. That's the major part, by the way, the module. They may contain research facilities, living quarters, and any vehicle operational systems and equipment the astronauts may need to access. Now, each of these items right here are minor parts or minor aspects to the major feature, which is the module. We can also create description through the use of similes. Similes compare a subject to something familiar to the readers, and it can often be represented by this formula: A is like B. So here's an example. The mixed waste landfill at Sandia Labs is like a football field with tons of toxic chemical and nuclear waste buried beneath it. So here we're comparing Sandia Labs with a football field full of toxic waste. Another method of description is through the use of analogies, which are like similes, but they work on 2 parallel levels. And the formula we often use with that is A is to B as C is to D. So 2 different parallel comparisons joining together to make one large comparison. Circuits on a semiconductor wafer are like tiny interconnected roads crisscrossing a city's downtown. So see if you can figure out where the 2 levels of comparison are actually being made and how they work together to make a larger comparison. Finally, we can use description through metaphors, which are used to present an image of the subject by equating 2 different things, A equals B. The example: the heart is a pump. It has valves and chambers, and it pushes fluid through a circulation system of pipes called arteries and veins. Once you've finished the description of either the process or the mechanism, then you would move into the conclusion, and the conclusion is short and to the point. The conclusion of the technical document should also describe one working cycle of the object, the place, or the process. Okay, that wraps up our discussion on the technical description, the 3 major parts of it, which are the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, and the various moves that happen within each section. If you have questions, please contact me. Thanks.